my name is Jessica, if you haven't seen me before. For today's video I am quite excited or quite nervous. I'm going to be converting my brand new Anthurium Magnificum X Regale to Leca. If anyone has seen my video when I converted my Anthurium to Leca, you'll know that it was a little bit of a rocky process. I did a few things wrong, and so I'm hoping that with this one I will amend that. But let me show you the plants. Okay, so how beautiful. Okay, so this is the 2 leaves that it came with. I received this plant in the mail just over 2 weeks ago, and when I got it, sorry, I think I see it in the back. Just want to check. Okay, it's not, it's just my eyes. This is my gorgeous Magnificum X Regale. And as you can see, this leaf has quite a lot of damage. When I unboxed it, this was a brand new leaf that had just unfurled. And if you can see that these 3 marks were on it. So that one over there, that one over there, and that one over there were very, very slight, like discolorations. Like it just looked a little bit thinner in those areas. As it is hardened off and carried on growing, you can see that the damage has gotten a bit bigger. It also looks like it has spread to the sides. This plant did have 2 adult scales on it. I definitely want to take it out of the soil because I'm just going to presume that there's probably eggs inside of the soil. That is another reason why I'm going to be repotting it, but I was waiting it to harden off, and it has just started to harden off, so it's still got a tiny little bit more hardening off to do. So I'm not too concerned about this damage. I do have a feeling that something happened to it while it was unfurling. I'm going to take the moss off, take the soil out. I'm going to be getting rid of the soil away just because of the scale that I did find. I think I'm going to do a little time lapse for you guys so you can just see me pulling it out. Then we're going to have a really good look at these gorgeous roots because I'm really excited to see what these roots look like. I don't think they're as thick as the Clarinevians, but really cool. I think it's going to be really interesting. So it's actually really interesting to see the root system on this because it's very, you know, it definitely looks the same as the Anthurium clarinerviums, but on a much thinner, smaller type scale. You know, they're exactly the same roots in terms of like they're quite juicy looking and quite thick, but they are much thinner than the clarinerviums, which is quite cool to see. So I've taken off as much of the soil as I can, and also I have sort of just been trying very slowly to pull off the bits of, there's lots of this like fir bark and stuff that was inside, so the roots sort of grow in that and out of that. So very, very carefully I've just been sort of breaking and pulling and getting those off. When I say breaking, I mean the bark, not the roots. But these are really good, healthy roots. I'm quite happy. As you guys know, if you have seen any of my other Leca conversions, I don't take all the soil off. I don't scrub my roots like a lot of people do. And what I'll do is I'll just faff with it a little bit and get as much off while it's dry of the little pieces. Then I will give it a really, really good rinse off. And what I like to do is I prefer to just leave it in water for a longer period of time to allow it to grow some new water roots, than to actually scrub these roots before I put it into the Leca. So this one I'm going to do a little bit differently to the other one. My plan initially with this one was to only leave it in water for a day or 2 just to plump up the roots a bit, and then I was going to convert it over. But it has been in soil a little longer than I thought it has, and it's actually quite nicely established in soil. I don't want to only give it a day or 2 in water because of the fact that I think it's going to take a little longer to transition over. Plus, if you actually look at the bulb, the roots, the corm of this, you can actually see that they have cut it in half. I would assume that the growers, but as you can see, they've cut it in half, so it was quite a thick chunk. Oh, that's what it is, they're called chunks, not corms. Okay, so it's quite a thick chunk, but then they have cut it in half, so it has been cut down the middle here in order to probably pull this pup off or to make more in order to sell. So I don't want this chunk, this part just sitting directly in water, just to be safe, because you know, I've been trying to learn from my lessons, my mistakes here, and I don't feel comfortable leaving that in water. Yes, it's very calloused over, and yes, it does sit in, it has been sitting in some wet soil when it gets watered, but you know, it's quite a different situation. For my own sanity, I don't want that sitting in water, because I just don't want to worry that it starts to rot, because if this does start to rot, we do have this part that I could cut off, but there's very little room for error if this does rot. I could cut this section off and then I would lose some of the roots, not all of them, but yeah, I don't want to rot a chunk for no reason. I'm going to take this to my bath and I'm going to pressure wash it as much as I can to get as much soil off as I can, and then I will show you how I'm going to put it in water without that part sort of sitting in water. Well, I have just finished giving the roots a little bit of a clean. I'm actually almost going to be doing a sphagnum moss kind of vibe with a tiny bit of water in like a reservoir. So I'm actually going to be using this vase and I'm going to place it in, and I'm slightly worried about it maybe not having enough air, but I don't want to squash it in, and I'm actually just going to put the tiniest bit of water in. It'll be over here, and because it's in a glass jar, I will obviously just keep topping it up and making sure that it's here. My hope is that I'm going to encourage water roots to start growing, and then I'm actually going to pack it with sphagnum moss on the top. The reason for that is that I actually wanted to start growing roots at the top with the sphagnum. So this is just normal rainwater, which I'm just going to put a small amount at the bottom before I start putting all this back. And like I said, the reason I'm doing this is just because I don't want the chunk in water. This is something that I will probably change out quite often, and I'm kind of just going to very loosely place this bag on top. And I'm saying loosely because I don't want it to be too dense. I want some airflow. I'm putting this bag on top because I don't want the roots in the middle that's not in water to dry out. Okay, so that's basically what I've done. And as you can see, there's just a small amount of water over there. I've actually left a huge big air pocket and then this bag on top. You could always put perlite at the bottom rather. I just want to try this. I just want to be able to see that chunk at the bottom. As you can see, I can see the chunk in the middle, and I just want to make sure that at no point that chunk is sitting in water. If this was like a normal chunk, a smaller chunk or a chunk that hadn't been cut in half, I probably wouldn't be worried about leaving it in water, but because I've never done this before with an exposed chunk center, I'm just not confident in leaving it in water. I'm gonna give it a week, and then I'm going to let you guys know how it goes and change the water out, see what's happening, clean off the leaves again, and take it from there. So I'm trying to film at night for the very first time, and it looks like it's working, so that's actually going to be a huge help. Because sometimes obviously weekends just get a bit hectic, and yeah, so it'll be really cool if I can actually get, you know, an evening setup done, and at least it gives me a little bit more time to work with. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure how long it's been. I think it's been about 3 weeks. Unfortunately, you know, things have changed in my life a little bit for the worse, and I'm very very sad, and it's been about 2 weeks. I haven't done anything with this car since I took it out of the soil and started the transition over, so I haven't touched it, and I'm so glad that I ended up doing it this way instead of how I normally would in water, because it actually gave me the opportunity to just forget about this plant, which I needed. I needed 2 weeks, and even now I'm like not really ready to get back into it just yet, but I'm going to. There's definitely a load of root rot and there's definitely a load of root growth, and I'm so glad I did it like this. Like I said, it's been living in the cabinet. Have still been filling up my humidifiers, so that is the level of care I have given. I have watered some of the more free, like, you know, I have watered some of my plants, but I just haven't done any sort of plant care. I haven't repotted anything, I haven't cut any roots, I haven't trimmed anything, I've done the bare minimal, which is watering the things that needed it. So this guy has literally been sitting like this. I'm sure it's been about 3 weeks. Sorry, you can get reflections, but look how much happy new root growth this is. This guy's doing really well, and as you can see, it's pushing out a new leaf, which I think is going to be really small and a bit deformed, but I mean, it's obviously quite happy. I'm like so chuffed that it's putting out a leaf. So I kind of didn't want to do this because it was putting out the leaf, but I do think it's going to be small, and all I'm going to be doing today is cutting off the dead roots and then putting it back into this exact situation until that leaf opens, and just to make sure that there's no more root rot. I do think that maybe some root, we'll see once I get in there might be a little bit of root rot that still happens. So I just want to keep it in this container so I can see all of the roots for now until the leaf opens and is hardened off, and then I'll probably go from there. So this is going to end up being like a 3-month process of moving this to Leca. All I'm going to do is take it out and cut off some roots. But this is what this is exactly what I like about doing this process rather than moving plants straight. I think I'm going to turn you down a little. Okay, so I'm just going to put you down for like this little bit because this is what you guys want to see anyway. So I'm just going to take all the moss off, but I am going to be putting it all back, so I'm not worrying about it too much. I'm not going to be taking it off the roots or anything like that. Maybe I'll just pull it out rather. Wow, this guy's doing so well. This is really cool. I do want to take it quite like most of it off just so that I can kind of see if there's any rotting roots up here. Other than that, and just so that you guys know, I have actually been giving this nutrients. So all this growth isn't just from water. I have actually started giving it the Leca nutrients, and I think I've actually been giving it as higher quantities as my fully established Leca plants, but I felt like these roots are pretty established and they were growing, so I was just giving it the same dilution that I was giving everything else. And I'm careful because there's so much happy root growth here. I don't really want to disturb it too much. And I mean, there's definitely some rot happening, but it's a bit difficult to actually even get to. I'm just going to be cutting off sort of these little rotted bits, which honestly isn't even that bad. It did look like there was a lot more. I don't understand how that works. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do this without not disturbing the roots too much, because I always just get a bit overexcited with everything that I do. Look, the roots that have rotted a while ago, so I don't even need to actually cut them. I'm actually just removing it from the plant. I could have actually probably just rinsed this, but I just thought it would be good to show, because this is why I was saying, like, you know, the root dying is not a problem at all because so much root is growing. Wow, it's actually hectic how see, I already broke off some root. Happy, healthy, live root, because I'm silly. Look at this one I broke. It's very sad. I do find the anthuriums that I own, the few that I own, are their roots just so easily broken. They're not sort of malleable or flexible at all. Okay, so this is about as much as I'm going to do. I've just slightly untangled it and I've just pulled off, just with my fingers, the super soft dead root. I just kind of trimmed it out. If I knew what I sort of knew now and the conditions of the roots, I probably would have just left it, or I would have taken it out and just rinsed it immediately and not really faffed over it too much. I wouldn't have really untangled the roots. The plant's doing really well. It's also got a new little bud popping out the side over here, so that's quite exciting, this new little bud over there. And it's obviously got this leaf, and there's a potential little spot where it's also going to be budding. So what I'm going to do is just put it back, and I'm going to put it back in the same water situation. This I had on here, I just had him holding himself up, using this and clipping it against like the side of the humidity box. But at this point I'm not really ready to move it over to Leca, and it's more of a mental thing. I'm not prepared to look after it just yet in Leca. I'm not prepared to give it the attention just yet, and I also, like I said, I really want this leaf to come out and do its thing. So I'm basically just going to be putting it back exactly how it was, but I have removed some of the root rot, and I will just be rinsing out this. I'm going to go give this a clean and rinse it out, and then yeah, pop her back. But it has been a really long time since this guy started the conversion process with this, and I think the last time you guys saw it, it was still just in the water. What I ended up doing is I just wanted to get it higher in my grow cabinet, so I put it in this, but I still did the same concept. I kind of just filled it up with Leca and then only put the roots on top and then fill the water right up to the Leca. But now what I want to do is actually move it to the Leca properly. So if I want to try use the top half of this as a little bit of a moss pole, so I'm going to be potting this all a little bit lower and seeing if I can't actually fill one side at the back with quite a bit of moss up, and see if I can't get some bigger leaves on this. Oh yeah, I don't think you guys would have seen the new leaf since it was little. So this is the new leaf now, all opened. Yeah, I'm really chuffed with how he turned out. Look how beautiful he is, and he isn't much smaller than the other leaf. So okay, he looks quite a bit smaller there, but considering that I converted it over to Leca, it's in a new environment, I'm really chuffed with how that turned out. And I do have a feeling that a new leaf will be coming soon, so we'll just have to see how this process goes. Wondering if loosening this up made it worse. I don't think it's possible. I don't know how to get the Leca mixed in with it. Okay, so I am actually a little bit worried about airflow the way I've done this, I'm not gonna lie. It would be nice if I could get like plastic ones like this and then drill sort of some holes around, I don't know, this area here and keep a little bit of airflow, but I don't know, I feel like I'm in too deep now and I'm just going to keep going. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this little section over here where the new growth is coming, and I'm going to fill that up with moss.
Yeah, and then the nice thing about that is we're going to create sort of a half moss pole. I just have some sphagnum moss here. It needs to be soaked still, it's all dry. So I'm just going to put a little bit because I really don't need much. And then I have this Calmag, which I've never used before, so I'm going to be using this Calmag. I don't know if you can see, it's calcium and magnesium, which apparently Anthuriums love. And I'm new to Anthuriums, or relatively new, so I'm going to give it a try, but it's pre-mixed in this. So yeah, I just mixed up a 5 litre, and then I just labelled it because I don't think I'll use it all now, but I just kind of feel like I want to try and soak the moss in the Calmag so that the roots up at the top get a bit of it. Just letting this all soak up. Okay, so I'm just going to be putting it over here around where the new leaf will come from, so that when the new leaf does come and it starts to shoot off another leaf, it can hopefully grow from there, and maybe it'll even shoot out some little babies. I doubt it, but it's worth a try. That's all I did, is I kind of just cushioned the back over there with some sphagnum moss. I don't want to fill up the whole thing because I don't want to encourage rot unnecessarily, especially considering that this isn't a very airy kind of mix. It's not up at the top where fresh air can sort of run in. Obviously there's no holes at the bottom, but air doesn't really come from the bottom anyway, especially if you're putting it in a pot. It's all kind of stale air anyway, so yeah, lots of air here, so the roots should be okay theoretically, but you know, you never know. And then I'm just going to fill it up so that the water level is just by the Leca, so that the bottom roots can absorb. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit different, the way that I transitioned over. It's not the way that I normally do it, and I really think I actually loved this way and I enjoyed this way. So this might be a new way for me to do it. Rather than putting it in water first for a week, it might be like a half moss, half water thing. The reason for the half moss and not just putting it in moss is moss is extremely difficult to get off the roots, and it's just a step that I don't enjoy doing if I don't have to, especially when I'm just trying to grow some water roots to put it into Leca. Doing it just in moss is also okay. It's perfectly okay, there's nothing wrong with it. I just like this method. This whole process should have only been like 2 weeks. I shouldn't have left it for longer, but I left it for extremely long, which was what I actually loved about doing this process. Is some things happened, I wasn't able to get to this sort of stuff, and I couldn't get to this sort of stuff, and I was able to leave it, whereas with water, pure water, that would have been a big mistake. I would not have been able to do that. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, then please do consider hitting that like button. And if you did like this content, then consider giving us a subscribe. But yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next video.